Good morning. Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak this morning on the 21st of May 2024. And you can write to us at Citizen TV Kenya. Tam Gituko. The hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak. And I want to introduce the panelists here. In studio, I have Julius Kipleting, who is the Member of Parliament for Keses constituency. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
He actually tells me that it's his first time here. So it's good to see you.
Thank you.
As you make your maiden
glad to be here too.
Speech here.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam Kituku and viewers of this morning show. As you rightly, I'm CPA Julius Ruto, Member of Parliament, and I'm glad to be here. Unfortunately, when I woke up, I felt some cold on me, but nonetheless to say it's exciting to be here so that we're able to discuss the state of the nation, where Kenyans are keen to know what is the direction our country is going in terms of economic recovery and in terms of ensuring that we have a sustainable environment to grow and to build our economic situation.
All right, great. Karibu sana to Daybreak.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Joy Kiru is an economist and senior lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
You've been away for some time.
I'm back now.
Okay, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here too. Thank you.
John Mbadi is Member of Parliament, but also the chairperson of ODM. It has also been quite a long time. Where did you go to?
I'm very much around.
We haven't heard from you.
Chairing Park.
Okay, yes. Okay. Good to see you then.
And looking at how your money is spent.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll not say much. You know, he's making his maiden appearance. Thank you.
All right, asante. Irene Otieno, Advocate of the High Court, but also the Executive Director, National Taxpayers Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
For you've been here?
Yes, once. So happy to be here.
Okay, second time.
Yes.
Oh, that was Swahili?
Yes, it was
okay.
Swahili.
So another maiden appearance, at least on Citizen Daybreak. Karibu sana. And I hope to have some good time to talk about what is being proposed in the finance bills. There has been a lot of concerns, especially on two key issues, tax on bread, tax on motor vehicles, but there are so many other issues that are in there that I would want us to spend some time to appreciate. And on the front page of the Standard, you'll see there's a story, Gachagua allies to oppose Ruto tax proposals. The Mount Kenya MPs say their first rebellious act against the president will be to amend the finance bill that the government intends to use to collect taxes that will fund its operations. And they're giving details of those whom they are. They're citing Gitonga Mukunji, they're citing Geoffrey Ruku on their views, also saying that Geoffrey Wandeto said the bill only proposed to allocate 4 million shillings towards the coffee subsector, but it tends to propose 117 billion shillings. I think these are a different bill on that will touch on the expenditure affairs. But let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa Kipleting, because you come from the Finance and Planning Committee, and you can tell us the status of the processing of this bill, because there was an invitation to Kenyans to bring their views. Would you know the status of that, but also when you begin to process this, because time is running. By mid-June, the budget will have to be read, and shortly after, the finance bill has to be considered and passed.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, we need to appreciate the fact that the provision of the Constitution underline the factor of public participation as a crucial mechanism of making any law in the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, by law, Kenyans were invited through a notice, which again the law stipulates gives a period of 7 working days for that particular process to commence. And as I talked to you from the calendar of the Committee of Finance and National Planning, effective Monday coming next week, I think that is around 27th, we will be sitting as a committee and to listen to Kenyans of all sectors. Of course, there are those experts and there are those Kenyans in every sector that feel probably whatever proposal is in that finance bill could be amended otherwise or could be improved otherwise, for the purpose of ensuring that our budget, the budget expenditure, is adequately financed, and that we're able to see the growth of our economy and growth of our GDP, where in the long run, as a country, Kenya, we want to be independent economically.
So when do you close submission of written memorandum?
It is ongoing now. It is ongoing. It is ongoing. We have already begun to receive got a report in the last meeting that already at the clerk's office, there are those who have already written the submission. They have made their submission. But as usual, and as in practice, all of us know, we will have a cordial time where the same people appear to prosecute their matter. And we listen. As a committee, ours is to listen. And in the long run, put in or factor in what Kenyans are saying. Because we like, and in fact this process, most of the time, and unlike even the previous finance bill, we got to learn a lot from the sectors, practitioners, agencies, where they were able to help us improve and come up with an hybrid law that in the long run saw the target and the agenda of the executive being achieved by adequately resourcing the expenditure. On the other side, it assists us ensure that the law that we passed in the accommodated the feeling of all Kenyans. It provides an avenue. Sometimes we say as a parliament, we may not be endowed with that full knowledge of everything, but in this engagement, you'll be able to learn a lot. Of course, when you exchange questions, and sometimes as parliament and with our independence, we don't exactly do what executive has proposed, but rather we make the law independently, but putting into consideration the people of Kenya's views.
Okay. Of course, what you said is quite debatable, reflecting on the Finance Act of 2023. But Chairman Mbadi, talk to us about, because there's been complaints about the Finance Act of 2023 and how it was considered and passed in the House. I remember attempts to make some amendments, especially from the Azimio side, and couldn't raise the numbers to turn the majority vote. How does the House make this time round different to ensure that, yes, the Kenyans, you're right, they'll be heard, but their issues, their concerns will actually be considered, not just about what National Treasury may want?
Yeah, and that is why I say the people of Kenya decided in 2010 to give themselves the power to participate in every legislative process that goes through Parliament. And yes, we have that process kicked off. It has just started, and the people are submitting the memoranda, plus physical appearance is likely to happen before the committee. My only prayer is that this time round, it doesn't become an academic exercise as it has been previously. I remember last finance bill, which is now the 2023 Finance Act, people give their views. And I will tell you that if there is any legislative proposal where Kenyans really participated in large numbers, and there was wide discussion in the newspapers, in TV shows like the one we have today, and even in the streets, it was the Finance Act of 2023. But all the suggestions that came from Kenyans, over 90% were rejected by the committee, purely on political lines and political expediency. That is why I am happy to read today's headline of the Standard newspaper, but I'm not happy to read it because Gachagua allies are planning to oppose Ruto tax proposals. I would be happy if they oppose offensive clauses in the tax proposal, so that we have an objective National Assembly where members vote not on party lines or political expediency, but would vote on matters that affect Kenyans and vote for the people of Kenya. That would be my prayer and that would be my hope. So I think looking at the 2023, I know we'll discuss the details. There are some, 2024 finance bill, there are clauses that obviously need to be looked at and if possible amended. So I hope we are going to develop a bipartisan approach to this process. That is my hope, because it has not happened previously, except when we attempted to get CS Linturi out of office. You saw kind of a parliament you'd be happy about. But going to this finance bill, I want to pray that we replicate the same.
And that is interesting that you should say that, because essentially, Irene, whether Kenyans or politicians like it or not, there has to be a Finance Act of 2024 in whatever form. So how do we ensure, as Kenyans, and also the association that you represent, how do you ensure that the offensive clauses are pinpointed and enough information is provided, especially for members of parliament, to make a consideration?
Thanks, Sam. And I think the thing I find a bit problematic around our discussions around the finance bill is that we look at it as a one-time event. But when you talk about the offensive clauses in the finance bill, we have been engaging with separate parliamentary committees from last year because we saw the gaps in terms of a lot of submissions being given to Parliament, but the uptake of those submissions were very low. So what we have been doing is meeting with select committees and sharing alternative policy options, issues around wealth tax, capital gains. So I think that would be my first call to all of us as players, both experts, both professionals, civil society players, that we use the 1 year between, say, the 2023 to 2024 to have conversations, because Mheshimiwa Ruto has mentioned that they don't always have sufficient information, and that is where we have been coming in to share that evidence. But unfortunately, that evidence has been overtaken by the politics of the day, and so we do not find this taken up. And just also to follow up with what Mheshimiwa Mbadi has said, in terms of the framing even of our gazette this morning, is that they are rebellious. So it's not about rebellion. I think giving an alternative voice should not be framed as rebellion. That is what we call leadership, that we have to look at the Kenyans who will bear this burden of taxation. And so it is not against one political class or the other, but it is looking at the standards of living of the Kenyans and can they afford it. So yes, in terms of looking at the offensive clauses as civil society, and I'm sure other players affected in different industries, we have already drafted submissions. A lot of us are retreating right now to look again at clause to clause and share that with the committee. Hopefully that will be taken up.
Okay.
I want to confirm, even from the 2023 Finance Act, there were a lot of proposals which were made by sector players, agencies, like export levy. You remember it was exporting way that CS for Trade, Moses Kuria, had proposed exorbitant rates. But after engaging and looking at the effects, as a committee, we were able to reduce it. And of course, even in the House, Mbadi will confirm, during the third stage, where we were looking at clause by clause, there were a lot of amendments which were proposed even from members from the other side of the divide in the House. And it was considered. So I want to confirm that we have a parliament.
But very few were carried.
Yes. Pardon?
Very few were carried from the Azimio side.
If you look at the matrix, and I think you should access the report, it was shared, you'll be able to look at contributions. We had our whole 2 weeks listening over agencies, and you look at every contribution against which was provided, and the remarks at the end of it, which culminated in the final amended clause that was objected to the House. So it's a good process, and I want to keep hope. Maybe on this one you are talking about, let's not much dwell on what the media is saying. Media has a way of putting up its issues. When they say Kashakwalis, if you look at the content of what you read, which is also good, the region is a coffee growing area. They are concerned on the expenditure side.
Okay.
Which now brings a question, how do you finance the increase? So it calls back again to the finance bill.
It is interesting, we should have figured out the media, but you're saying that while in the media, but it is well. Dr. Kiru, talk to me about, because you're still at the formation stage of the conversation, when you're reflecting on the Finance Act of 2023 and the impact it has had on the economy, what are those things that stand out that you think, as you get into the 2024 bill, we should be wary about, especially when looking at, yes, this is a proposal, but it has an implication not so long after the passage?
If I think about the 2023 bill and what it funded and the results now, I'm just looking at the newspapers today, and I'm seeing like the numbers look good. Looks like the economy is growing. It looks like different sectors are growing. But if you spoke to Kenyans about their experiences, they will tell you a different story. And I think the whole thing is, much as the economy is growing, the numbers alone, like I always say, Kenyans do not eat numbers. Kenyans need jobs that bring an income. Kenyans need food on their table. Kenyans need health. Kenyans need education. Kenyans need well-being. And most importantly, even as the welfare of Kenyans improve and even as the economy grows, the issue of resilience really needs to be inbuilt. And that's the thing that the government really needs to put forward to focus on going forward. Because if you look at these numbers, the economy is growing, but where is the resilience? Are we ready to take big hits in terms of the taxation, the tax proposals which are proposed here? Is the economy resilient enough to take this? Because if you talk about economic growth without resilience, it means that that growth is not sustainable. To sustain that growth, for example, you have to come up with the resilience measures to increase and to cushion Kenyans and ensure that whatever happens,
Right.
the economy is resilient and the livelihoods which have been created, they're resilient and they can proceed forward.
Interesting. We'll get to details about that. But Honorable Mbadi, talk to me about what you think would be the offensive clauses on the face of it that you think a deeper conversation is required before the passage.
Yeah, before that, let me just take a minute to say something about the economic growth. You know, we need also to understand as a country that after every election, the first financial year after election must always see a higher economic growth, because you are coming from a low. You know, if you're coming from 0 and you add 3, it is something that looks big. But if you're coming from 10 and you add 1, it doesn't look that much big. And if you look at the indicators or those areas or sectors where there's economic growth, you'll see food and accommodation, because we came from the COVID era. So we are coming out of that era, and you can see a registered growth. The next one you will see is agriculture. Of course, we had good rains, and that is not guaranteed every year. So, but if you look at manufacturing sector, which should really indicate the well-being of an economy, is just around 2%. You go to commercial sector is not doing so badly. But I would tell you that this growth should not confuse us. And again, in terms of the last year's Finance Act, the biggest challenge we have, and that is why Kenyans are crying, is because we targeted the purchasing power of Kenyans. When you do that, you definitely hurt the pockets of Kenyans. Everybody will complain. And to me, I thought this finance bill, and that is where I agree with my sister here, that really we should not look at finance bill of 2024 as a one-off thing. We must realize that when we are looking at this bill, we should ask, why didn't we correct some of the things that we passed in the last Finance Act, which are not helping the economic growth of this country. But now coming to this bill, there are things that stand out and which Kenyans have talked about. Number one is this introduction of the motor vehicle tax. I don't know where we are getting the thinking that when you have a vehicle or a car, you are wealthy. Actually, most of us Kenyans, apart from a few, own cars just for convenience, because we have a completely disorganized and dysfunctional public transport. If we had a functioning public transport, I would tell you, many Kenyans would not be driving on these roads. So owning a car should not be punished in this country. And it is going to affect the economy generally. Look at those who are involved in the Uber business, those who are involved in Matatu business, those who are transporting their bogas to the market, etc. So this tax, in my view, is not well thought out. I don't think it is necessary. Given that already you are paying duty when you buy your car, and again you pay a railway development levy, you pay a road maintenance levy, you pay VAT on petroleum products now at 18%, and at 16%, and the list is long that these people. Now, this next one that I also want to mention, I know people will talk about the VAT on bread, etc. But there is one that you'll hear very few people talk about, this so-called minimum top-up tax, which is being introduced, I think, under Clause 5, Clause 9 of the bill. You know, let me tell you, that formula first, I looked at the formula. In fact, if you're a mathematician, a statistician, you really have to sit down with a pen to really work it out. It is a very complicated formula. First, it is going to lead to this, you know, the KRA staff are going to abuse that process. That is number one. Number two, mostly the people you are targeting are the small taxpayers. People who really may not even understand what you are talking about. So that minimum top-up tax, to me, should be done away with. The other one that I would also talk about is the excise duty on money transfers or transfer of funds. now you see majority of us Kenyans now transact a lot of business through mobile money transfers, not because we have money, but that is the only way you can. When you are transferring money, that is an income that had already been taxed.
Right.
Some.
You're making
and you're transferring money to your mother in the village. It cannot be treated as an income to be taxed heavily. So you are increasing that from 15 to 20%. What for? Why are we doing that? There is also the issue that they are now changing the digital monetization tax, calling it fiscal presence tax. And I looked at some of the things that they are now bringing to tax, like food delivery, something like that, that rentals. Now, the question is, already you are taxing rental income at 7.5%, or you are taxing the person who is doing the food delivery. There is a tax that you levy on that business. Now, when you do that business through using IT to do that business, you are again taxed. You know, these multiple taxes will just discourage business. And to me, I think a tax policy, where I have a problem with Ruto's tax policy, Ruto the president, not Ruto. The Ruto's, it is not, the tax policy is not encouraging investment, is not encouraging business. And you know, when you discourage businesses, you are definitely not creating job opportunities in the country.
Right.
So you are moving from a system where you can create more formal jobs to creating informal jobs, literally, by putting money in housing sector to have so many fundis building houses. I don't think that, to me, is the trajectory that we want to take as a nation. That is not what we fought for independence to achieve. So those are the things that I can pick.
All right.
Maybe the last one, being an accountant, there is a provision in this bill that requires that any payment from a public institution, any payment received should be treated as income for the year it is received. That, again, as an accountant, does not make sense, because we embrace accrual basis. All private sector work on accrual basis. Now, when you take them away from that, and you are like, now when you receive money, the income is recognized as realized when the service or whatever you do is offered, not when
the payment is a cash flow issue.
So you are going to cause confusion.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is going to be in line with the international financial reporting standards.
Okay. There's something else on payments from public institutions. Are withholding tax being introduced?
Yeah, there's the
supplies?
Mostly I know of the withholding tax being introduced into all professional services. Anything, you know, at the moment there's a threshold that it must be any amount after 24,000. But you are now introducing withholding tax on professional services on any amount.
Right.
Yeah, so that again is problematic.
Okay, all right.
Maybe,
we'll get to...
Maybe a rejoinder on that, especially...
Sorry, Mheshimiwa, we'll get to the details. Please note it down, because we need to take a short break here, because we also need to talk about what he mentioned about the minimum top-up tax, what the effective rate should be. After the break, stay tuned for that. We will be focusing on more details into the finance bill and the implications to different sectors, but also the economy. We'll be back in a moment.